Hi, everyone. It's author Rebecca Hefner here on the Indie Audiobook Deals channel. And we are so excited to have author and narrator Kim Alexander here today. Welcome.
Thank you. Delighted to be here. I think this might be my YouTube debut. So
Real? Well, we are
yeah,
so
big
excited.
day, big day.
We're excited that you're coming on our channel to do that. Welcome.
Thank you.
So this is going to be so special for our listeners because you are both an author and a narrator. So
Yes,
I'm really excited to dig into that. So I guess let's start. Why don't you tell me a little bit? Let's start with the author side first. So tell me a little
sure.
bit about how long you've been an author, how many books you've written, what genres you write in, all that good stuff.
Well, I've kind of been writing my whole life. Like I was in the backyard when I was like 6 and 7 years old with my little notebook, writing stories about deer and the forest and stuff. But it never really occurred to me that being a writer could be a job. So I spent most of my career in broadcasting, which is where the narrator part of it will come in. So I wrote everything. I wrote essays, I wrote book reviews, I wrote morning show humor.
Nice.
So that was fun. And commercials. So many commercials.
Wow. Very
Yeah, I
cool.
wrote so many commercials. And my broadcasting career came to an end. We can touch on that later if you'd like, about 10 years
Sure.
ago. And I decided my husband decided I didn't need to go be a barista. I should probably just start writing the books that I wanted to write like my whole life. And
Sure.
I read mostly science fiction and fantasy growing up. That's the world I knew best and the place I felt most comfortable and the world I wanted to live in. Because have you read the news? Ooh.
Right.
So I immediately started writing an enormous epic fantasy series. I don't know whether writing a 4 book, like 100,000 word each book, 2 timeline, just so much more ambitious than, I mean, if I knew how much work it was going to be, I probably would have maybe I should make this my second project. No.
Right. Right. But still, I mean,
So
go big or go home, right?
right. I swung for the fences with that one. So I've got a completed 4 book, 1 novella epic fantasy series called The Demon Door.
Okay.
And that's out in the world. And then I started like, well, I'm tired now. My brains are soft. I wonder if I can write first person and short and contemporary and snappy. So my second series is called New World Magic. It's paranormal romance and it's set in DC and many other places, and that's my current series. Book 5 in fact is with my editor right now, which is why I have all day to talk to you.
Oh, awesome. Well, we're going to chat away. That's exciting. So what calls to you about paranormal romance? How did you start writing that series?
Well, my girlfriends and I were in a writing group, as many of us have writing groups, and that's, having that community is so important.
Sure.
Because sitting at your desk by yourself all day every day, it's you need
So
a
boring.
you need to talk to your fellow humans every now and then. So one of us said, and this was at the book expo in Chicago, so this is probably 5 or 6 years ago, we should do fairy tale retellings, and we all went sure, because we were on our way to the third bar of the night, I think. And we all went home and started writing retellings of Goldilocks or Sleeping Beauty or Snow White. And I didn't know what I wanted to work on. I knew it was a good idea, but I didn't know what I wanted. And I did a lot of research. I didn't want to do something that had been done a million times. And I had a copy of The Unicorn in Captivity, the tapestry that everybody has seen. It's the unicorn
Okay.
in the little circle in the fence.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And it's a 13th century or 15th century French tapestry. And I've had it over my desk since I was like 10. And I went, The Unicorn in Captivity. Let's talk about that. I don't think anybody had done unicorn shifter up until that point.
Oh,
So, usually if it's a werewolf, it wants to go out kill people once a month. And usually there's a sort of a dark connotation, but a unicorn is sort of the opposite of that. They're
yeah.
perfect. The name of the first book is Pure, because that's what they are. And I thought, well, what would that look like in contemporary society? So that's what the series is about. Bartender Ruby, she's my main character. She's coming home from the bar one night, and she
As you
saves
were.
him, as we were, and she sees a unicorn in dire straits. Somebody's there; he's going to be poached,
Oh,
and she saves his life. And then comes to find out he's actually a unicorn shifter. And
Wow.
the story goes on from there. And I wrote it sort of to see if I could do it, but
Yeah.
I came to love the characters so much that and I love writing about DC,
Right.
my hometown.
Okay, nice.
So now, like I said, I'm on book 5,
So, and
which
that
which
is
is
so creative. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard of a book with a unicorn shifter. That's really, it's cool, very creative. So,
I mean, I was obviously very influenced by the book The Last Unicorn, where she does turn into a human woman for a while, but I don't think she's would consider herself a unicorn shifter by any means. She was a
got,
temporarily disadvantaged unicorn in that book.
got it.
But that was one of my all-time favorite books, so I was happy to pull a little influence from that too.
Awesome. All right. So now, because we're an audiobook channel, we love audiobooks.
Yeah,
So tell me about all these books that you've written and these different series. Since you also narrate, do you narrate
yeah.
your own books or do you have other narrators? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I had the Demon Door series finished. It's like I said, it's 4 books and it's enormous. And even though my background is in broadcasting, my background is not in acting or in audiobook reading, and that is a skill and an art, as I'm sure you are well aware.
I don't narrate
And I
my own
thought,
book. Yeah.
yeah, the first book, the Sand Prince, I think it's like 130,000 words. It's like over 300 pages. It's a great big book. There's a lot of named characters. There's a lot of viewpoint characters in addition to my 2 main characters. And I thought, with a sudden stroke of wisdom, maybe this ought not to be your first stab at voicing an audiobook. So I farmed it out, and I had a
Fair
very nice
enough.
young man, William Turbot, who's got a lot of experience in big fantasy books, did it for me,
Great.
and he did a great job. And I let it be. I let it sit for a while. It did okay, but I've still got 3.5 more. I've got the 3 books and then a novella that came along with it. And I think I'm going to do those myself because
Nice.
I did do the audio version for Pure and the audio for The March Effect, which is the sequel, book 2. And they were
Fantastic.
out on Audible. They were out on Audible. They were exclusive with Audible for a while, and they did pretty well. And I actually got some rather good reviews. And I was like, hey, look at me.
Great.
And then Scribed came along and said, we are interested in your first 2 books. And I said, thank you very much. And obviously it's up to them who they want to have narrate, and they can
Right.
change the covers and they can do whatever they want. And the check cleared. So good luck.
That's
So they
yep.
elected to have their own person, Emma Roberts, I can't remember her name. She's a lovely young lady, and she narrated the first 2, Pure and The March Effect, and they're out there in
Okay.
the world. They're wide.
Yeah.
But they elected not to go with the rest of the series, which is fine with me because now I get to do it.
Now you can take
So
it over, which is
yeah, I
exciting.
took it over. So Emma has the first 2 books, and they're in wide distribution. So I'm going to do the same thing with the rest of the series. And I'm about 10 chapters into The Great Shatter, which is book 3 of the series. And I'm enjoying it so much that I think I'm just going to do the rest of the series, and then I'm going to tackle the Demon Door and try and do the rest of those as well. I think it's good for your brain not to just do one thing all day long. So if I spend half my day writing and editing and half my day doing voice work and editing that, I think that would be a nice distribution of my time.
Yeah.
And having been in broadcasting all those years, I'm a good editor and I'm really fast. And I know that's something that is like a big roadblock for a lot of people who want to do
Yes.
voice work, is the editing is like a whole nother thing.
Right.
So I'm lucky in that I can do both.
So speaking of that, so let's say an aspiring narrator is watching this.
Hi.
Hi. What are the sort of pearls, a couple of pearls or tips you would give them if they're just starting out?
Well, I think there's probably 2 schools of thought for narration, and one is acting. And everybody has a different voice, and people could do accents, and they tear the books apart and they go line by line. That is something I've not done. I did some theater, community theater, and obviously that was not the direction I went in. I'm not an actress. I think the other school of thought is to just tell the story, and that's the only way that I can do it. The only accent I can do is from Long Island, which is where I grew up. And though it is a fabulous, musical, and elegant accent, I don't know how long people will be willing to sit through my character talking like this, for 4 hours in the car. So
Right.
that's, I guess, get a good relationship going with the author. Get them to send you how to pronounce everybody's name. Sit down with them if you get a chance. When I did the sand prints with William, I sent him like 15 pages because it's half set in an alien universe. And he was so grateful because
Definitely.
a lot of fantasy authors will make up language or parts of language, which I
I do.
love. Do you do that? Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
That is like the best.
It's my favorite part about writing
It is
fantasy romance.
absolutely. It's like making up language and making up idioms and stuff like that. And one thing my friends did tell me when I told them I was going to start writing fantasy, they said, please don't use names that we can't pronounce in our head. So I try and keep the names like you can see what they probably sound like, and that's the
Yes.
case. But
Yes.
definitely, if you're a new narrator, don't be afraid to ask a million questions. As also, as we both know, one thing that authors love talking about is their books. So they will not be offended. They will not be mad.
Right.
Ask a million questions. Ask what they mean by this. Ask about phrasing and intonation if you have to. And then just, tell a story. But as
Yeah.
a general rule, slow down. I think
Right.
that's a general rule from anybody that ever sits in front of a microphone. Slow down. I can
That's
tell when I'm
very good
starting
advice.
to get tired because my voice gets faster and higher until I'm doing my narration and it sounds like I'm on helium. And okay, maybe I better stop for the day. It's time to step back at that point.
Got it. That's very good advice, right? Time to just take a break
Yeah.
because you'll probably have to throw out anything you do when you're that tired anyway.
Yeah.
Well, take a step back and take a break, right?
Yeah. Like I'm still fairly new at talking for an hour and a half without stopping. So, I mean, there's diminishing returns. I can only do maybe two or three chapters, and then that's really it for the day. Then it's time to turn to editing,
Got it.
because it doesn't get better as you
Yeah.
go along.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Like anything, your voice is a tool, just like anything
Yeah,
else, and it can
right.
get tired and yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
definitely. So yeah, so why don't you tell us, I'm very interested about your past in broadcasting. Tell me a little bit about that.
I was lucky in that I think I'm one of the last generation of people who started as like a local disc jockey. There's not a whole lot of I mean, there are podcasts now.
Right.
I started when they were still using records.
Right. Nice.
Records, my friend. I rode a dinosaur to my shift at the radio station in Fort Lauderdale. And I worked at a radio station in Fort Lauderdale as a disc jockey. Then I went back to college, and then I moved to Key West. I was a Key West disc jockey,
Nice.
which means I got paid in sunshine.
Right.
Not a lot of money in broadcasting. I don't think there ever has been. So I
Right.
moved to writing because there's a ton of money in that.
Ah,
I moved to DC, and I was a traffic reporter. Went up in a
oh,
helicopter, went up in an airplane. There's a
cool.
backup on the Beltway. That
Ah,
was me. And then I worked at Sirius XM Book Radio. That was where I ended my career, which was in a really a magical and amazing place to work. It was the first,
nice.
XM Radio was the first
Yeah.
big satellite broadcaster. And I worked there as a traffic reporter. And then I got an upgrade and I co-ran Sirius XM Book Radio.
Wow.
Maggie Linton was my partner. And my whole job was interviewing authors and reading books and going to Comic-Con and going to the Miami Book Fair and going to, wherever books and authors gathered. I'd show up with my microphone and do interviews. So essentially I did, like almost a 10-year stint as a masterclass in how to write, because I was talking to
Sure.
Anne Rice and Neil Gaiman and George R. R. Martin, and I talked to everybody. And I
Awesome.
got to pick their brains. That was my job for a really long time.
Wow.
And
That is a
eventually
whole.
I would have died at my desk in that job very happily. It was a good job.
Nice.
Every morning I get to work and there would be a stack of boxes on my desk, books that they sent to me. They were mine to read. It was my job.
I
It was a good
mean,
job. Eventually, Sirius XM said, I'm glad you're having a good time, but we're really not turning a profit. So they took the channel off the air, and the severance check was delicious. Thank you very much. And that was what led me to be able to start writing full time. That and the support of my husband. I love you, honey. He's a computer genius in the other side of the house, and he's he's waiting for me to start making that theme park money so we can all
right.
retire.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
We'll
Fingers
get
crossed.
there. We'll get
We'll
there,
get there.
right? You said it's one book at a time, right?
One book at a time. Exactly.
Well, that was what an awesome story, and what a way
Thank
to
you.
sort of meander this really cool path. And to now be an author and a narrator. So very cool. Okay, so tell me, if someone's listening and this is the first time that they've stumbled across you, what is the one book in your catalog that you would recommend they start with?
I have to answer that with two books.
Okay, sure.
Because my series are really very different. If you like big, complicated, sophisticated, lots of complex intrigue, politics, Game of Thrones, Dune is a huge influence on my writing. The Sand Prince is the first book in the epic fantasy series that is available in audio. I think it's exclusive to Amazon to Audible at this point. And it's just a big, meaty book. It's for adults. It's definitely not YA. There's, some explicit content.
Okay.
But I love those characters so much. And even though it was my first book and it was a challenge, I'm real proud of it. So if you're more of a True Blood fan, that was kind of the seed of the second series, New World Magic. That is fast, contemporary, also not YA, also some explicit content. But it's really got a romance at its core. The Fae get involved, which is a lot of fun in books 2 and beyond. We travel to the Seelie of the Unseelie Kingdom, and once the Fae get involved, all bets are off. But that is a much faster paced and more contemporary series, and that's the paranormal romance, and the other one is the epic fantasy. So it really depends on what floats your boat. What are you into? Do you have 15 hours to read a book, or is it an airplane ride home? That's the question.
All right, so everybody watching, now you know where to start. If you want to start on Kim's books, that's super exciting. It sounds like you've got a little something for everyone, depending upon
I hope so.
What floats their boat, which is
right.
So, all right, great. So tell us, where can we find you? Do you have a website? Are you on social media? Yeah. Tell me where to find you.
I am everywhere. Really, my website is a good place to start. I spent the last 6 months, I have a lot more hair before I started setting my website up to sell books. That was a learning curve. So I just sold 2 books directly from my website, and I was never more excited by 2 99-cent sales ever in my whole life. It's KimAlexanderOnline.com. And that's where you can buy my books directly from my website, or there's links to, I'm not exclusive. I'm everywhere they sell ebooks, and even some places that they don't, and regular books, I guess. My books are available everywhere, and the links are all from the website, or, you can go to your Amazon or your Barnes and Noble, or I'm available on all of those sites. My audiobooks are available. The Sand Prince is available, I think, exclusively through Audible, and Pure and The March Effect are available wide. And shortly, The Great Shatter will join them, and that one will be voiced by me.
So exciting. I feel like that's so exciting that'll sort of be your foray into getting that out. Yeah. You wrote the book and you're narrating, so that's really exciting. And I know a lot of authors think about that, so you've given some good info for them, which is good. So
I hope so. It's challenging, but it's definitely worthwhile. Nobody knows your characters better than you do.
So true, right? So true. I always say this when we talk about making the little TikToks you make for your books, and I always say, oh, I wish I could hire someone to do this, but no one's going to make an ad or a TikTok for your book as well as you can do it, right? Because
I think especially with indie authors, we're selling ourselves, really.
Right.
Why should I trust you to plop down my 99 cents to $12 or whatever it turns out to be? Because you're going to be spending a lot of time with me if you're going to read my books. Yeah. So, you have to trust me to take you by the hand and lead you on this journey. So you're selling yourself first. So yeah, getting somebody else to run your social media is tempting because it's a lot of time. It's very time consuming. I'm not on TikTok. I am on Instagram. Instagram seems like still a nice, quiet, safe little backwater. It's pictures of my cats in my garden. And occasionally we'll talk about my books. That's my favorite place. That's the best place probably to interact with me right now is Instagram.
Good. All right,
I think it's Kim Alexander Author on Instagram. Pictures of my cats is the big draw there.
Okay, awesome. Hey, I love cat pictures. That's the best thing about the internet, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, so Kim Alexander online, or you can find
Yep.
her at Instagram as well. And I'm also going to put a link to the book, the link below, so you can find the books that she suggested that you start with in her catalog. And Kim, thank you so much for joining us, and congrats on your YouTube debut. We're so happy you did it here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a real delight.
Yes. And thank you all very much for watching. And we wish you lots of happy listening. Have a good day.